Thank you for joining us this evening. Regular scheduled council meeting of the Park City City Council on April 23rd, 2019 at 7 p.m. Dee, would you call the roll?
Jonathan Hare.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta. Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Randy Bailey. Here. Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Oh, man.
Thank you. Tonight, Pastor Gary Whiting is going to lead in the invocation, and Councilmember Tom Jones is going to lead in the pledge. If everybody please stand.
Shall we pray? Gracious Heavenly Father, in the blessings of the freedom of this land, we give thanks to you for government and for order that they bring and for the potential for blessing, which you have designed in them for the good of those who are governed and for the good of our society. We ask, Heavenly Father, at this council that your Spirit would reside, that the decisions might be made with wisdom, conversations might be carried on with honor and with integrity, that spirit of peace and goodwill might prevail here, that all these things might be done for the benefit of this city and for the glory of thy name. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. George?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
And Melvin.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. That brings us to awards and presentations. And tonight we have a proclamation to consider.
Thank you, Mayor Mann and Council. And in my hand, and I know that you cannot read this, but what this represents is 20 years of Park City being declared by the Arbor Day Foundation a Tree City USA. So in honor of that, I think some of you already know, but if you don't know, the city does have an arborist on staff. That is our park supervisor, Bruce Helberg, and every year he does a presentation for our elementary school. With the fifth graders, they plant a tree and they celebrate Arbor Day. So in light of that, we have a proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, now therefore, the Honorable Ray Mann, the mayor of the city of Park City, Kansas, has proclaimed April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day. The city of Park City, Kansas urges all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day, to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, and further, we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion from the council? Tom?
Or make a motion that we approve the proclamation.
And George?
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-0. Thank you very
Go
much.
plant a tree.
All right, next item on the list is public forum, and we don't have anybody signed up this evening, so we'll move on to staff reports, and we'll start with our city administrator, Sean Fox.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For this rendition of the City Administrator's report, I wanted to update you on the status of our new maintenance building. As you all are aware, Council approved $394,567 for the construction of a building back on September 11th of last year. A contract was signed a week later for $379,567, which is $15,000 less. And at this point in time, I can only assume the extra $15,000 was held in reserve for necessary future add-ons such as fencing and a lift. To date, 2 change orders have been approved. The first adding installation of a 4-inch sewer line from the building to Prospect Road for an additional $6,000. And second change order, which included reconfiguration of the interior space, provided for firewalls, installing interior metal liner panels, deleting the jib crane, and crediting back permit fees included in the original contract. Change number 2 resulted in an overall net credit of just over $18,000. As of today, construction is nearing completion, but as Dana briefed last month, there are still some required expenses that were not in the original contract, and so I will be bringing those back to council at the next meeting for your approval, and those include completing a survey of the property, installing fence around the property, installing a lift, paving the front apron, which will be concrete, and the parking lot along the south and the west side, which should be asphalt, installing internet connection and security cameras, and then there are some follow-up expenses of prepping the old maintenance building, such as installing the grinder pump and the force main. The majority of these items can be paid for using both the $15,000 above the contracted amount council approved, as well as the $18,000 change credit. But that still will leave approximately about $18,000 to $20,000 that's either at this time unbudgeted or unapproved. The plan going forward is the building, I've talked with Lou, should be complete and turned over to the city by May 10th. Eric and his staff will spend 2 to 3 days moving into the new building. And then right now we are scheduled to close on the old maintenance building the afternoon of May 17th on time according to the contract. Pending any questions, that's all I have, sir.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from our builder inspector, Bob Walker. Bob?
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Bob Walker, Building Inspector, Park City. This is a quarterly kind of report. So far this year, we've issued 107 permits. And out of the 107 permits, 28 permits have been issued for 1 and 2 family dwellings, which is a pretty good jump start. We had a really, and it's no news to anybody, real rough winter. And a lot of the contractors that were building the 1 and 2 families got down. They were just actually got slumped down into the mud. And a lot of the projects took weeks longer to even start back up. So it was not a very friendly winter for Park City when it comes to building new structures for residential. I'd like to go over on our commercial permits. That's what's going on. And the first one that, Dan, can you put that up there, please? I'm trying to. Okay. Well, I want to talk about the Atwoods project. There it is, the Atwoods. That's at the 5501 Air Capital Drive. It's Mercantile. Atwoods has been in Park City a long time, over off on the 1600 block of North Broadway. And this contractor, it's at 20% complete, but they just shut it down for the winter. They shut her down and they weren't going to fight the elements, but they have started back up. And actually today I completed the last footing inspection. So they'll proceed ahead and start with the floor, and we'll see that erection start up with Atwoods on that project. The next project, the AutoZone, 5,650 square foot structure. It's a new business to Park City. And my understanding, I don't know, historically there used to be a Garnett's in Park City for an AutoZone, or yes. However, this is AutoZone. It's a parts store. They're opened up, so I hope the Park City people go over and do business with them. So anyway, they're completed. I love the way they did the work with the landscaping around it, if you noticed. And I wished I had a picture of the building that came down. So there's a tremendous change here on that corner, and it really is a great asset to that corner, that location. And the other, go ahead, Dana, please. That's okay. This is the Northern Pipeline Building, is what we're calling it. It's a business that is actually relocating. It's a national business, so they're actually relocating from the Wichita, and they're coming out to Park City. And I don't have the square footage. I wish I got that. It's at 90% completion. It's on the new industrial drive at 6200 North Armstrong. They're about 90% complete. And what I like about this site, majority of that site was conditioned with recycled materials, which was great. And if you notice, if anybody's had seen it, it used to have quite a few big piles of it ground up there. It's all gone. It just disappeared into that parking lot. That's about 90% done. They may be a little more now, and they should hopefully open up in a couple of weeks. So that's good that that business is relocating in Park City. And then the next slide is a company that's been here a long time. They're actually a trucking company, and they do many different activities with heavy-duty trucks, and they just flat out grew where they were. So here at the on the 302 West 61st Street, we've got a 17,500 square foot building going in so they can service their heavy-duty trucks, and also with an office. And it's kind of like 60% complete. And so those are the ones I wanted to talk about. So if you have any questions?
Tom?
I've got one, and
Yeah.
I haven't been by there since I got the complaint, but I got a complaint about where the dumpsters were at the parts store. They were just setting out on the concrete, no barrier cover or anything, and I didn't know if they were still that way or not, so.
Parts store, the
Yeah.
AutoZone?
Yeah, at AutoZone.
Well, they're in an enclosure.
Are they now? I don't know that there was a closure there when it,
It's in an enclosure now.
Okay.
It's been enclosed around it.
like I said, I haven't been by there. This happened a couple of days ago, and I haven't been by there, so I didn't know if it
Yeah.
had happened or not, so, okay.
Okay, any other?
Melvin?
Northern Pipeline, is that the building on the west side of the ditch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
in, actually, there's going to be another business locating in that, but the paperwork hasn't been generated, but.
I've seen
it's a
that
good
the
start.
AutoZone opened up today, and I think the grand opening's the 14th of May, so
Okay,
that's, in Atwoods, are they on track or they are going to continue to build, right?
yes.
Okay, well, I've heard rumors that they stopped for a while, but they are going to continue to build it, okay.
For which project are you asking?
Atwoods,
Oh, yes.
okay.
Well,
They
I
just
tell you
shut
what,
down
no,
one.
that guy, the contracting company was out of Texas, and man, when it turned cold, I just thought, what the world's going on there? There was no problem. They just said, we're not going to fight the elements, and they didn't.
Well, be careful what you say about Texans.
So I'm not picking on Texas, but,
Thank you.
all right.
Jordan?
I just make the observation, the weather never slowed down AutoZone. That's just amazing how fast, from start to finish, they worked right through the weather. They put that thing up.
Yes, they did.
That's amazing. People could take lessons from those people.
Yes. Yeah, that's a well-built structure. They're all well-built, but that one goes a little extra.
And they're a
thank you.
good, solid company, too.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. It's always good to hear the
Yes.
exciting news of the new development going on in town. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Jim
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
and George.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. That brings us to new business, item A, which is consider approved repair for a pump floor in the 53rd Street lift station. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. The current lift station is badly corroded due to its age, as discussed in the March 26th council meeting. that this was a reused lift station moved to this location in 1985. Although reliable, it is outdated. The repair consists of existing motors and piping, sandblasting the current floor, and adding a stainless steel overlay, and constructing new electrical control panel supports. This repair will extend its operational life approximately 5 to 10 years. We have met with a vendor and was offered a solution, and they expressed their concern that the process could take up to 2 days to complete at a cost of $4,074.56. This is unbudgeted to be paid out of the 2019 Utility Funds Sewer Department, and attached is the proposal from ProWeld Professional Welding Services.
Okay. Just for citizens that may be listening, when we're taking down a lift station, can you just address anybody's maybe concerns of what happens when we take one out of operation?
Yes, sir. This is going to be a two-stage process. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to do all the prep work on the first day. And the second day, we'll raise the pump. We will have to shut off the lift station, bring it out of service. We will have pumper trucks standing by to pump any sewage if we encounter that. We expect it to be 3 to 5 hours of the pumps being off.
Okay, I just know some people that might be some good information. How do we
good
get
question.
around it to make that happen? Does anybody have any questions? Is there a recommendation from the council? Jim?
I don't have any questions, so I would move that we approve the repair of the pump floor in the 53rd Street lift station in the amount of $4,074.56 to be funded out of the 2019 Utility Fund Sewer Department.
Melvin?
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
That brings us to item B, which is consider an ordinance amending the municipal code relating to the exceptions to consumption of alcoholic liquor and beer on city-owned public property. Doug?
Mayor and council, some of you may recall that last fall, in response to a request from, I believe it was the Disc Golf Group, there was a desire for that group to have a beer garden in Hap McLean Park in connection with a rather large tournament that they were putting on. At that time, that was impossible. We had an ordinance that prohibited any consumption of alcohol in the city parks. And in addition, it also prohibits it on any city property. An exception was written into an ordinance that you adopted last October, which allowed alcoholic liquor to be consumed in city parks and on city property if advance notice of the event was given through the staff to the city council, and the council could then approve a waiver of that general exception. The requirement that was written into that ordinance was that if alcoholic liquor was served based upon a waiver, it would be done on site on the city property or the city park through the use of a licensed caterer. Based upon a question from one of the council members, I looked at this and discovered that what I didn't do last October was to repeal an ordinance that was in a separate section other than the beverage section of our city code, which prohibited the consumption of alcohol in the city parks. So in order to clean up that, what you have in front of you is an ordinance which repeals section 12-111 of the municipal code, which is in the section on parks, and it removes that general prohibition of consumption of alcohol in public parks. And then finally, both 3-104, which is where the waiver provision appears, and in 12-11, where the prohibition was removed. I'm sorry, we're not repealing 12-111, we're amending that. I also added the term beer along with alcoholic liquor. Again, some of you might remember that recently alcoholic liquor has now been expanded because of action by the state legislature to include strong beer, but it doesn't include 3-2 beer. So to the extent that that still exists, the generic term beer was added along with alcoholic liquor. So if you adopted this ordinance, the result would be that there would be the ability for the city council to waive the prohibition that exists against the consumption of alcoholic liquor and beer in public parks and on city-owned public property when there is advance notice of the event given and when the event is going to have the alcoholic liquor and/or beer served by a licensed caterer.
Does anybody have any questions for Doug? Melvin?
I see that you marked out the public parks or other city property. Why is that marked out?
Can you
At
tell me?
12-111 there, you marked out or other city property?
Right, that's an ordinance that went a little farther than it should have back when it was adopted before my time. It's a park ordinance, so it prohibited consumption in parks, and it went a little farther and said other property. We had another ordinance, which is the one that you amended back in October, that dealt with city property generally.
So you can't have beer and alcohol in the parks, but you could in, say, the library or here? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you adopt this ordinance, you'll be able to consume alcoholic liquor or beer,
right,
or both, in city parks and on city-owned public property.
Gotcha.
To the extent that you give advance notice to the city.
Right.
Bring it before the council, and the council then waives the prohibition. And a condition of that kind of an event having that waiver granted is that it must have the alcoholic liquor and the beer served by a licensed caterer.
Okay. The only thing about that licensed caterer, if somebody wanted to have a reception for a wedding and toast the bride there, and they only have just a few bottles of alcohol, they'd have to have a licensed caterer. Couldn't they have a responsible person or
That's really up to you. The way this is drawn, they need a licensed caterer.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see somebody just responsible for it, or not maybe a licensed caterer. They may be having chicken from Leakers and, toasting with wine.
Are you good, Melvin?
Yes.
Tom?
That was my question too. If somebody rented the senior center for a private party, then they really couldn't have beer or anything in there, even though it was private, unless they had a caterer. And I got a little concerned with that. So I'm kind of like Melvin, you're not going to have a beer party, but you may want to have something there, and you can't do it. So.
Well, my comment would be that I guess since the city was incorporated, but for a long time you just couldn't have alcohol. So your decision today, you've already, last October, opened the door and provided for a waiver. Mm-hmm. And at the time you did that, you required that it be alcoholic liquor served by a licensed caterer. So this is to do what you're asking to do, I think would then sort of open up parks and city property to the consumption of alcoholic liquor and beer, and quite likely involve you in several decisions about waivers from time to time, and that's something you need to think about if you want to do that.
I think the one thing that we need to keep focus here, the one reason why we did this was so that we could host events that would come here that would be professional events done in an appropriate manner. And I think we should consider staying on that course. Going away from that and just open, like Doug said, you're really open the doors to anything. We're still in the test phase to see how this works. And I think we need to go in those waters slowly, and we need to stick with the caterer requirement. Because when you get off of that and you get into some people and you'd like to think everybody's responsible and takes care of things, but they're not, we just need to stay the course of where we're at, see how this goes over the next few years, and then maybe there's a time to make an adjustment. But the reason for this adjustment and the reason why we supported this last year was so that when we had a disc golf or some professional venue that wanted to come in and do something, we weren't trying to handcuff ourselves or put ourselves where they might not be interested in us. So, John?
So I'm just trying to remember back, it's been a while, but like at the library, if they're in the, we say library, but in the basement, we rent it out to venues and events and stuff. This would allow them to do exactly what we're saying here. If there's a caterer there, they could serve alcohol. And then I remember it's been many years ago, but over the 4th of July celebration, and have we been asked before, it seems like someone was wanting to do a beer garden at one time or something, is that right? Mm-hmm. So if they had a caterer's license, they could also do that inside of we would set the parameters on it, like say in the tennis courts that are contained or something like that. Mm-hmm. This allows us flexibility more than anything.
Right, and then exactly what Doug said, is as long as we know in advance and it's able to come to the council and the council can approve that waiver, we pretty much have that flexibility to do it any time to do something and support those types of events.
If this passed.
Yes.
I guess while I have the floor, I would make a motion that we approve item B, amending the municipal code relating to the exception to the consumption of alcoholic liquor and beer on city-owned public property. Amending said ordinances.
Okay. So on the suggested motion, is that where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can read it if you need me to, but
I would, because we're trying to clean up so that we're...
Okay. I'll move to approve ordinance number
1059, 2019.
amending sections 3-104 and 12-111 of the Municipal Code of City of Park City, Kansas, pertaining to the prohibition against consumption of alcoholic liquor and cereal malt beverages in the city parks and on city-owned public property, and repealing the originals of said sections 3-104 and 12-111.
Okay. And George, did you want a second for discussion?
Yeah, I wanted to speak on this deal, but I'll second it, but I've got something I want to say. A couple of things. Number one, I won't mention the city. I was at a rec center in a neighboring city for a wedding, and after the wedding, they hauled out this big bar and started serving, and I was kind of amazed. I thought, well, government property here, how are they doing this? So their recreation director for that city was there, and I asked him, and he explained to me that what they do there is for people to do that, they have to go to the chief of police and apply for a permit to do that. And there's a fee, and the chief of police lays down the rules for them and checks their background and everything, make sure they can handle it. And so that's the way they do it. And there's no caterer there, but supposedly I never seen anybody get out of line. But still, that's what it was. And the second thing, I'll just make a point. I believe in being brutally honest. What you're trying to do when you do this is make people that's breaking the law, make them honest. Because anybody that thinks they're not drinking if they're in the park is not dealing with reality, because they are. And they've got a very special way they do it, and there's not much you can do about it. But what we're doing is we got people that's doing it, but we're forcing them to break the law. But they're going to do it anyway. And I would like, if you're going to do it, the fact is, it's going on up there anyway. Anybody that thinks it is a dreamer.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dee, would you call the roll?
John Lanhare.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta. Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Nay.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye. And that passes 6-1. And that will move us on to item C, which is consider an ordinance amending the municipal code relating to the schedule of fines for traffic infractions. Doug?
The mayor and council, at the present time, our ordinances provide that the municipal court judge establish a schedule of fines for traffic offenses, and that schedule is applied when somebody wants to come in and pay a traffic offense, come to plead guilty and pay without a trial and without a court proceeding. In the course of the recent work that the police department's been doing to try to get its Digiticket platform up and running, they became aware that the schedule has changed from municipal court judge to municipal court judge over time, and that it would be a significant advantage going forward in the management of that Digiticket platform if there was a kind of a certain schedule of fines, and it was suggested that the city could adopt by reference a schedule of fines for traffic offenses the same as that's set out in the Kansas statutes, which is one that applies to several cities and counties around the state. And by reference to that, then if there were ever changes, those could be input into the system, and the Digiticket platform are relatively easy. I did mention in the fiscal impact, but of the staff summary that I provided for this, but I'll also address it in connection with the fines generally. I think it's fair to say that there are, of these, you have the list with you there, and maybe some of you went through it, but maybe 100 or so fines. Several of them go up a little bit, several of them go down a little bit from what we presently had as our schedule of fines, and several of them stay the same. The overall impact is really fairly minimal. We're not changing anything significantly and impacting any specific traffic offenses, different from what we've had over the years. And then finally, while I was doing this, became aware that the law enforcement, court personnel, and code enforcement training fund that we charge as part of our court costs, existing right now at $19.50, is authorized under state law to be $22.50. So I increased that to the maximum. It was at the maximum at $19.50 several years ago, and it has been increased by the state legislature. That is a significant training fund, one that we, in those three areas, court personnel, code enforcement, and police department, make significant use of to train our personnel. And then finally, the fingerprinting section of our segment of court costs was increased from $10 to $25. That can be as much as $45 under state law. The first court costs I talked about, the training fund, applies to anybody that comes in and pays a fine and has court costs imposed. The fingerprinting one only applies to people who are fingerprinted, and that's a relatively small segment of the people that go through municipal court. So the fiscal impact on people for that substantial increase is going to be relatively small. I would recommend that you adopt this amending ordinance to accomplish the establishment of a schedule of fines that tracks with the state statute and then raises those two elements of the court cost.
Okay. Doug, just for a little extra here, what this would be doing, if I'm reading you right too, is if a different agency may have stopped and given somebody a ticket for something one of our officers would have done, it would make the fines the same by passing this, whereas right now you could see a difference between getting stopped for an infraction in the city with another department. It could cost you more or less than what we're currently at, right?
That's true. It would avoid that kind of a conflict, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for Doug? Is there a recommendation from the county or from the from the council? John?
I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance that amends sections 9-103, 9-107, 9-114, and 14-105 of the Municipal Code of the City of Park City, Kansas, pertaining to a schedule of fines for traffic infractions and other traffic offenses and court costs in cases before the municipal court, and repealing the original of said sections 9-103, 9-107, 9-114, and 14-105.
And George?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. Dee, would you call the roll?
John Hare.
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Ben Salcetta. Melvin Kerr.
Aye.
Tom Jones.
Aye.
George Capps.
Aye.
Brandy Bailey.
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
And that passes 7-0. Thank you. And that brings us to item D, which is consider bids for water and sewer improvements in High Ridge Second Edition Phase 5. Sean?
Yes, sir. The summary is discussing and considering approval of the bids from Mees Construction for water and sewer improvements for High Ridge Second Edition Phase 5. High Ridge Phase 5 consists of 37 homes located at the corner of 69th and Hillside. The developer, Elite USA Construction, LLC, presented petitions for both water, sewer, and paving infrastructure back in August of 2018 and was approved by the council. In February of this year, the water petition was revised to reflect more up-to-date numbers regarding engineering, inspection, temporary interest rates, bonding fees, and was also approved by the council. On April 18th, this last week, we had a bid opening, and there was a total of 5 companies that submitted bids. Mees Construction submitted the lowest bid of $389,120. In your packet, you should have the attached spreadsheets, which do include contract engineering, inspection fees, temporary note bonding fees, using the same percentages as previous petitions used for this project. This is a little bit unusual circumstance because all 5 of the bids came in higher than the engineer's estimate, and that caused a little concern. So we sat down and talked with the city attorney about it and made certain Mees, who is the lowest one, their estimate still was lower than the petition. So we talked with bond counsel as well and feel very confident that we're able to proceed going forth. Using the Mees Construction bid for water, the total projected project cost comes in at $141,671, and the petition amount is $144,300. And that does not include the 1% inflation or crawl on a monthly basis. So there's still a little bit more room there. Using the bid for sewer, the total projected project costs are $383,546. And again, the petition amount is $388,500. So there's about $5,000 difference. And again, that doesn't include the 1% crawl. This is a budgeted item. Also tonight we have Kirk Miller from K.E. Miller. If there are any questions from the council that you'd like to ask specifically, but staff recommends approval of the bid tabulation and then authorizing the mayor to finalize and execute a contract with Mees Construction in an amount not to exceed $389,120.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Is there a recommendation? Jim?
You answered my question about the budget, so I'll go, versus the original budget. So I'll go ahead and suggest a motion to approve the bid with Mees Construction in the amount of $106,562 for water improvements, $282,558 for sewer improvements, for a total bid of $389,120 in High Ridge Second Edition Phase 5.
Okay. John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. That brings us to item E, which is consider approval of an interlocal contract for a cooperative purchase with the Houston Galveston Area Council. Mr. Fox.
So I did bring some things from Texas. As far as the background, HGAC, or the Houston Galveston Area Council Cooperative Purchasing Service, is a nationwide government procurement service striving to make governmental procurement process more efficient. Units of local government, including nonprofits providing governmental services, are eligible to become participating members of the HGAC BUY Cooperative. There is an associated contract with it. It's an interlocal contract. There's basically zero cost to the contract. It just outlines the terms and conditions of what they expect, how you would operate. The advantage for this is just about every city in Texas, but there are outside the state of Texas do this, and they all get good prices on goods and services that you need to operate a city. As a couple examples, over the years, I have been able to buy pickup trucks that you normally would go to, not trying to poke on a dealer, but go to Don Hatton. It's a $26,000 truck, but you can go on HGAC and buy it for about $17,000. So what started us down this path was the mayor had asked me to do some research with Eric looking into street sweepers. And so we started looking at that. There is another cooperative service called BuyBoard. I have already signed up for that, so the city, but they don't require an interlocal contract. HGAC does. We've already had the city attorney look it over, and he is satisfied with the terms and the conditions of the interlocal. And so I don't have any specific use for it at this time, but I think it will be advantageous to us going forward. Hopefully we can save some money that way.
Can you give us an example with the fire truck for council?
The last fire engine bought for the town I worked for previously was about $189,000 difference is what we ended up. And it still took we still went through the normal process of, it was a year long of engineering it, making certain it had the correct equipment, it was the right colors, because we had a special paint scheme that we wanted, and the fire chief and the firemen wanted configured a certain fashion. But if there's not something specifically on HGAC as far as a price, then they will come up with a certain discount. Anything in our catalog is 29% off. So that way you can contract with a specific vendor and get to the bottom line and then take 29% off, and that would be your ultimate purchase price. As far as dealing with HGAC, all we had to do was pay them $400 above whatever the contracted price was. That was for handling the paperwork, and then we had to drive down to Houston to pick up the fire engine. So,
Tom?
Well, that's my question. Where would delivery be from? Say you bought a police car, would it deliver from local, or would you have to go get it, or would it be shipped?
This is nationwide, so HGAC will be, they're the ones who operate this, but you will have vendors from all over the U.S. In fact, I was very excited yesterday when I was talking to the mayor about this, and that's a mistake I made, looking at street sweepers and figuring out, hey, this is an awesome price. But the price was for a manufacturer out of Kansas City, out of Olathe.
Okay.
So it would be wherever the closest is that we would be able to do that.
Okay, because I was looking at warranty and other things. If you,
yes, sir,
like you said, a pickup, and if you can't get a local, you got to pick it up in Oklahoma City or something.
Yes, sir.
And you have to take it to Oklahoma City for warranty work. Then some of the benefits.
It's not as good as it. Yes, sir.
Okay, right.
Does anybody else have any questions? John?
I'll make a motion that we approve the interlocal contract for cooperative purchasing with the Houston Galveston Area Council.
Tom?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. That brings us to governing body remarks, and we'll start with Jim.
I just have a couple quick comments. One was whoever's idea it was to put these summaries, one-page summaries in our packets ahead of the items is a great idea. That made the packet much easier to read, and whoever's responsible for that, I wanted to say thank you. And out in Bear Hill last weekend, we planted 20 trees, so I guess we unknowingly were supporting the Arbor Day proclamation. That's all I have to add tonight.
Okay. Brandy?
I don't have anything tonight.
George?
I don't know, with Dana's tree proclamation, it's hard to believe that there's 1 million trees in the state of Nebraska. I've been up there and it seems like it's just wide open to me, but maybe so.
Tom?
I don't have anything tonight.
Melvin?
I just want to throw out to the water department for all the leaks they fixed last week, or last council meeting there, and And maybe put a bug in people's ear about maybe the 4th of July float or whatever we want to do this year. So think about that. That's all I have.
George?
Yeah, I had a chance to visit the Chisholm School as far as the Arbor Day, kids' activities they had. It was a great day for the kids. They had a chance to get involved in tree planting. And there's always a need for trees. We cut them down, so we need to plant them just as fast as we cut them down. So I appreciated that. Also, our Park City Fishing Derby, we'll continue to working on that. That's June 15th from 9 to 11 at Chisholm Point Pond on North Grove. It's all free. For those new to the city, check us out on Facebook and also Channel 7. So we'll have more interesting items on that so for you to see about our fishing derby. Thank you.
John?
I have nothing. I would make a motion to adjourn.
Tom?
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-0. Thank you. Good evening.